Hello everyone, I'm Saeed Mandegar. In this tutorial I'm gonna teach you how to set up your Vray engine. Everything about Vray will be explained. Then we will dive into Adobe Photoshop right after this part. Stay tuned. Now let's dive in. This is our final render, and this is what we achieve after post-production. So stay tuned for that storm to come. Press render setup icon or press F10 to load it. Make sure your renderer is Vray. I have Vray 3.6, which is the last version until now. Please check your renderer as I do. Here, choose Vray Advanced if it's on other engine. View to render shows the camera you're in. Well, first set the comment tab. Single, which it means only render this camera. Area to render. View, which it means render what we see in perspective viewport. Output size. Custom, which it means we type the size of our final render. This section has more things to be explained. I will do it later. Render output. Check save file. It will save your render as soon as it's finished. And the last one is assign renderer. If you couldn't find Vray Advanced in renderer section, you have to open assign renderer and set production on Vray Advanced or any version you use. If your material editor is not giving you Vray engine to start making your material, you have to set it here. Change material editor to Vray Advanced and then press the lock icon. And after all these changes, press save as default. Oh, now you see some strange things going on. Its items are duplicated. Vray render setup needs to be closed and opened again. In the Vray tab, I opened the frame buffer. Just make sure enable built-in frame buffer is checked. Otherwise, it will render your scene by 3ds Max default renderer. In the global switch tab, first we have displacement to be checked. Set the default lights on off with GI. Full lights evaluator, use all the light source used in scene. But adaptive lights optimize the light source, and of course it reduces your render time. Image sampler. If it's a test render, set it on progressive, and if it's final render, set it on bucket mode. Whenever you want to render one specific object, set the renderer mask on selected and press render. If you change a material, choose texture and give it that material shader via your material editor. Image filter. Global DMC. It controls all the subdivisions. Color mapping. You can use exponential and Reinhardt, but for this scene I prefer to use exponential because I'm going to set my primary render engine on brute force, and these two match better. GI. Be sure that the Enable GI is checked. As I said, I use brute force engine to render my scene in the best way, but notice if you have Vray 3.4 or 5, just use Irradiance map engine. Secondary engine have to be light cache. Ambient occlusion. It will make a better shadow on the edges. Set all these parameters like I did. If you choose a sprawl, it will start rendering from the center of your scene. I like it. You can use another mode or whatever. Finally, render elements. The most important part for post-production could be this tab. Add these elements. By adding these layers or elements added, you can have a way better control on your final render while you start adjusting it in Photoshop. Well, we are back to the output size, and as I said, now it's time to fix it on required size. For having better control on the render size, I go to the rendering tab. Then select Print Size Assistant. First, you can use international paper size if you're going to print your final render. Choose your format. I use millimeters. Then choose DPI value, which means the resolution. Just be aware that the screen resolution is much lower than print resolution. If you're going to present your render on devices, choose 72. And if you want to print it, just choose 300. As you see, the image width and height depends on this item. After setting these items up, you have two options. First, directly render your scene by pressing render. Second, go back to render setup by pressing on render setup and do the rest settings. I want to teach you a trick. To clean up every hidden thing that might increase your render time, just right-click on your scene and choose Vray Sense Converter. It converts everything to Vray version to render it correctly and quickly. Now let's render it. Let's explain some more items on the frame buffer window. First, here we have all render elements layers. Select each one to see it on your screen. These items shows the RGB combination and things like that. This item will make a region, so you can specify an exact area to be rendered. This is a track. It forces render buckets to render wherever your mouse cursor goes. By deactivating this item, the buckets will return to their previous position. Memory icon is for saving your render. If you click and hold 1 second, it shows you more options such as multi-save. By selecting it, you can save all your elements at one place. Give it a format, a name, and gamma, and a place where you want them to be saved. Use .png format because it's saved with the best quality. Let's explain correction control. Here you can control the color and lights. You can shift the exposure toward adding lights to your scene or make it darker. You can make it more contrast. You can control white balance or color balance and more. labels won't be shown here before it's finished. Well, I think I'm quite done with this part. Next time we will dive into Adobe Photoshop, which is my beloved application. Just check the end of this video to see the before and after rendering and post-production. See you next time.